By the evening of the 4th of June, 1942, the Japanese Navy had witnessed the most disastrous loss it had suffered since the beginning of World War II, with 4 of its fleet carriers having been bombed, and all of them were burning. Operation MI was an absolute disaster, and the operation was called off. Midway would remain in the hands of the United States. And Cruiser Division 7 was ordered to withdraw. It consisted of Kumano, Suzuya, Mikuma, and Mogami. Next to the Tone and Chikuma, these were the most modern heavy cruisers the Imperial Japanese Navy would ever possess. At 21:38, Kumano, leading the formation of cruisers, spotted a surfaced U.S. submarine, which was the USS Tambor. Kumano immediately orders a 45-degree turn to starboard, and the 4 Japanese cruisers did not perform this very well. Kumano and Suzuya almost collided, but Mikuma, having made a 90-degree turn, and Mogami, having done the ordered 45-degree turn, ended up colliding. Mogami was devastated by the collision, striking Mikuma on the port side below the bridge at 28 knots. Mogami's bow was crushed back 40 feet and was bent badly to port. Mikuma had only suffered a small gash above and below the waterline, but one of its oil tanks had ruptured in the collision and the ship began leaking oil. Damage control teams on both ships go to work. They begin shoring up bulkheads in their damaged areas to prevent progressive flooding, so the cruisers were not total losses, and Mogami's crew decides to jettison anything that was considered flammable. This included its full complement of Type 93 torpedoes. On the other hand, Mikuma, which had not taken so much damage and was really under no threat of sinking, did not jettison any flammable material. Mogami at the given moment was only capable of operating at 12 knots, and Mikuma, which couldn't operate at full speed either, was ordered to stay with Mogami. Kumano and Suzuya would continue to escape from the United States aircraft carriers at full speed. The destroyers Arashio and Asashio would remain with the 2 damaged cruisers. By 6:30 the next morning, the 4 ships were heading westward when they were spotted by a PBY float plane, and Midway Island immediately responds by launching 6 Dauntlesses and 6 Vindicators, and by 8:05 they attack the 2 damaged cruisers, scoring no hits. However, one of the Vindicators is shot down, and it was operated by Captain Richard E. Fleming. This is where the greatest myth regarding Mikuma's loss comes from, as it's often said that Fleming crashed his aircraft into turret number 4 of Mikuma, completely destroying it and killing the crew in this location, and some sources even say this damaged the ship's engines, making it go dead in the water. The primary Japanese source reference for this story comes from Mitsuo Fuchida, who was a part of the Kido Butai during the Battle of Midway. However, he was not with Cruiser Division 7, and he was not a witness to the attacks on Mikuma. He was actually several hundred miles away. As for the 4 Japanese ships that were present during Mikuma's attacking, which included Mikuma of course, none of them recorded an aircraft crashing into Mikuma, and none of the eyewitnesses actually said this occurred, and the Japanese reports, as far as modern historians are concerned, are very accurate regarding how the United States was attacking the 2 cruisers. From the accounts that have been gathered, it appears that Fleming's aircraft crashed into the water before reaching Mikuma, if he had even intended to crash into the ship. The United States would award Fleming the Medal of Honor, and they correctly cited that he crashed in the water before reaching the cruiser. Half an hour after the Dauntlesses and Vindicators attacked the cruisers, 8 B-17s attempted bombing them as well, and no hits were scored. As a result of the increasing attention, it was decided to increase speed to 14 knots. The B-17s would report Mogami and Mikuma as battleships, and this would slightly impact the next day's events. By the morning of the 6th of June, 26 Dauntless dive bombers from the USS Hornet had spotted Mogami and Mikuma, but they were searching for the battleships that the B-17s had reported and temporarily ignored the cruisers. However, after they didn't locate battleships, they circled back and would attack the cruisers. Mikuma would not get hit. Mogami would take 2 hits in the vicinity of its aviation catapults. Mikuma reported that it had shot down 3 of the aircraft, but in reality, it only shot down 2. At 10:45, 31 Dauntless dive bombers would take off from the USS Enterprise in an attempt to locate the 2 Japanese battleships reported the previous day, and they would search in the area that the Hornet's aircraft had attacked the 2 cruisers. They were escorted by 8 Wildcats and 3 Devastators. Of course, the formation of aircraft would come across the Japanese cruisers, but they temporarily ignored them until one of the Wildcats reported that one of the ships appeared to be a battleship. With this news, and without sighting any other Japanese warship, the dive bombers decided to attack, and this would be a far more successful run. A total of 5 1,000-pound bombs would directly hit Mikuma, with 2 being near misses. The first bomb strikes the roof of turret number 3, and when it detonates, it severely wounded Captain Sakayama. He passes command to his XO, Commander Takashima. The second and third bombs detonate in the vicinity of the starboard forward engine room, completely disabling it, while another bomb penetrates the port aft engine room, detonating and blowing a large portion of the hull out. The final bomb lands in the vicinity of the bridge, and it detonates amongst ready-use anti-aircraft ammunition, which then causes those to detonate. The bridge takes heavy damage from the explosions, and much of the personnel had been killed or wounded in this location of the ship. Several large fires break out amidships. At 13:58, Mikuma was rocked by the most devastating explosion that it would suffer during its sinking. The flames had reached the torpedoes and caused them to detonate. The aviation deck, the after superstructure, the main mast, the after side of the funnel, and turret number 4 were all annihilated in the explosion. The hole that had been caused in the hull by the bomb that detonated in the aft port engine room had been worsened by the torpedo explosions, and flooding was hastened. Takashima recognized that there was no hope of saving the cruiser, and he ordered abandoned ship. Mogami and Arashima pulled alongside to collect survivors. Unknown to the Japanese, the bombing was not over, as at 1500, 23 dive bombers from the USS Hornet would arrive and begin their runs. Mikuma would receive one more bomb hit, killing Takashima and effectively rearranging what had already been destroyed on the ship. Arashio would also receive a direct hit on its afterdeck, where the Mikuma survivors were being collected, and this would kill roughly 100 of them. By 1525, Mogami and Arashio considered the rescue operation completed, and they would abandon the Mikuma. At 1715, 2 Dauntlesses from the USS Enterprise would arrive at the scene to witness the Mikuma burning by itself, and they would take a set of famous photographs and also film the cruiser. This was one of the earliest Japanese warships that would receive close-up photographs in the state of destruction by the United States. The photographs also revealed that there were still crew members aboard the Mikuma, which meant the rescue operation had not actually been completed. It is estimated that Mikuma capsized, port, and sank at roughly 1930. Over the course of the day, more than 700 of its crew had been killed. The destroyer Asasio had been ordered to return to Mikuma to make sure that there were no more survivors aboard the cruiser, and if it was still afloat, to scuttle it. However, it did not find the cruiser, and it did not find a wreck site. On the 9th of June, the USS Trout enters an oil field which marked the location of Mikuma's sinking, and it ended up collecting 2 survivors, the chief radioman and a fireman 3rd class. They were both taken to Pearl Harbor, and they would spend the rest of the war as POWs. On the 13th of June, Captain Sakayama, whom by this point had been transferred to the heavy cruiser Suzuya, dies of his wounds, and he was promoted to Rear Admiral. On the 10th of August, 1942, the Mikuma was officially removed from the operational register, and this marked the official end of its career. With that having been said, there is nothing more to add on to this topic for today. So, if you have learned something new, why not leave a like and a comment down below? And have a wonderful day.